something needs a tourniquet. You know, we need to be doing whatever is necessary right now to keep the district from getting to that point. And that means that we've got to get our instruction time back. That means that our voices need to be heard. And that means there are certain things that we need to be doing to prevent this divide and conquer from going on. To prevent, for example, I'll give you an example, which I might not have much time, but we have teachers that are in leadership positions, but some of the leadership positions that they're in, it puts them in a kind of conflict of interest. And so it seems like they're more loyal to administration than to teachers. And so there are some things that we need to be doing right now, and that wreaks havoc when it comes to teacher evaluation. Don't even get me started on that. But there's some things that we need to be doing right now to prevent that.
Ms. McGee, under what circumstances would you, as president, entertain a strike of the rank and file in the SEA?
There are only certain conditions in which that could happen legally. I don't think that we are at that point. When you get to the point where you have to strike, it seems that all communication is broken down on both sides. I tend to think that administration and leadership, they are reasonable, rational people, just as we are, and that the ultimate goal is for us to work together for the benefit of education in our city. So I don't think that I would be for a strike, except under conditions where all communication is broken down. It would almost be a situation where essentially the administration is run rogue and is just not willing to listen to anything else before we got into strike conditions. When I was a kid at the Liberty, the teachers went on strike, and I'll never forget because for 5 days I did nothing but watch cartoons. So it's teachers need to be in the classroom. If we decide to strike, that's a heavy decision to be made, but it is a decision that needs to be made collectively. The membership would have to be in agreement that that's what we need to do.
So, Mr. Collins, under what circumstances would you, as president, entertain a strike of the rank and file in the SEA?
Well, having been through the strike and been on the strike negotiating team, I know full well that there are no instances when a strike is legal, and teachers pay the price when they do that. But there is a circumstance, and I have been talking to presidents, superintendents, school committee members, not only here in Springfield but across the Commonwealth. I think we need to get together with our Mass partners, the Mass Association of School Committees, Mass Association of Superintendents, Mass Association of both elementary and secondary administrators, the Mass PTO, and have a 1 or 2 day statewide strike. And if, just like when we brought all the constituencies together, we held off Mitchell Chester for taking over our middle schools. But it is time, and it's going to take some time, to educate our members. Certainly the emotion is there. Certainly the fact that we've got people in Washington, D.C. and in Malden telling us how the work should be done. And it's shortchanging students. There isn't a teacher in this Commonwealth, even in the wealthier communities, who don't feel that. But the wider community, only 25% that have children in the school, is not aware of it. And the beating that we've been taking in the media, with the corporate control of the media saying the problem with schools is the teachers, is all wrong. They've got the money, we've got the people power. So what we really need to do, and I may be dreaming here, but there are other people of a like mind, is to really have a massive statewide movement And the fact is, the reason why I like a 1 or 2 day strike, because in my experience, by the time they get into court, we're back at work, and you have no penalties, you have no jailings, but we will have made a point across this Commonwealth that there's something wrong with the way public education is being run here in Massachusetts.
Mr. Collins, what experience or skills do you have for negotiating upcoming contracts?
Well, I've been on the negotiating team here in the SEA for 25 years or more. And prior to that, when we were represented by the American Federation of Teachers, I was on their negotiating team. So I've been through it, but I'll tell you, I've learned a lot along the way. The fact is that there is an awful lot that our principals and vice principals and supervisors and directors and superintendents agree is problematic with what's happening to us. And I think we need to work towards getting them on the same page, and those working conditions, our kids' learning conditions, we need to use the contract negotiations in order to make some serious changes in that. To accomplish that, however, we've got to get what the organizing committee has started really up and running, because not only do we need parents, we need the leadership of the congregations in this city, we need the leadership of other unions in this city, we need the leadership of the neighborhood councils in this city to be aware of the problems that teachers and principals, people living in school buildings are facing, and be supportive, even if it means, and there are communities that are not threatened by Mitchell Chester because of their test scores, and they aren't implementing all of these mandates that are coming down the way we are in places like Springfield and Holyoke and Fall River and New Bedford, where you're under the threat of this shame, blame, and punish accountability system that administration is afraid to stand up and say, no, this isn't right for kids, and we're not going to do it. I'd really like us to get us in that position, but you only get there if the community is behind you.
Ms. McGee, what experience, skills do you have for negotiating upcoming contracts?
Well, I definitely don't have the years of experience that Tim has, obviously. But I am legally trained, and I have had negotiations, and including interest-based bargaining. So I would not come to the table totally unable to understand what's going on. I think that it is very important for the community to be involved. I think that when you're considering asking for things, teachers are considering asking for things, I think that the community needs to be behind you. But the question is not, we all know that needs to happen. The question is, how do you get the community behind you? So I'll tell you some things that I've been doing and my vision. I've been working with the PTSO. One of my goals is to revive the PTSO or the PTA in Springfield. And not just revive the one at Putnam. Obviously I'm involved because my daughter's at Putnam. But also to get the PTSO officers, presidents talking to each other in Springfield. And I've been working with our parent facilitator to try to see if that's something that we can get done for next year, is to get all these parents together, or at least the PTSO officers. It'd be a great thing if we could get a grant to kind of do some training for parents for PTSO. And another thing that I've been doing is working with students in student government. I'm the 9th grade class advisor, been working in student government. I've been taking our students to student government activities throughout Massachusetts, in which they're getting the opportunity to interact with kids in rural school systems, and we don't really see any urban kids there. Springfield needs to be connected in, okay? That's where our voice is. On Friday, I'll be taking the students to a student advisory council, where their voice goes all the way up to the Board of Education. So those are some things that I'm doing.
Ms. McGee, is there a way that we can measure the success of our schools by the social and emotional growth of our children?
That's an interesting question. I think that Putnam was a good example of that. When you look at Putnam's MCAS scores, they're up. But if you've ever been in our building, what I see and what the teachers have communicated to me and what I see in the students' faces and the feedback that I'm getting from them is that we're doing a great job with that social emotional growth. The teachers have built great relationships with the students. We care about the students. Teachers put their time and energy into extracurricular activities, into clubs. A few weeks ago, one of our teachers did a citywide GSA event in which all the students from the other GSAs came to Putnam and they kind of did an event together. Those are some of the things that we worked on. One of the things I'm working on, wasn't able to make it happen for this school year, but next school year in the fall, getting all the student leaders from our different schools together and get them to talking and networking and talking about what we're doing great. We do Project Purple in our building. If you don't know about Project Purple, ask me. But it's to keep kids off of drugs. So these are the things that we connect kids in. What I was talking about with student government, connect them into other kids. You know, there won't be these issues between the different communities if our kids are talking to each other at student government leadership activities. Our student leaders are talking to each other. They're coming to visit each other's schools. And so I think that that's a way to measure it and how students are participating and how teachers are engaged with the students. I wish that I could sum it up in data, but I think that our scores are improving because of that.
So Mr. Collins, is there a way that we could measure the success of our schools by the social and emotional growth of our children?
I believe there is a way to do it, but we don't do it. And the fact is if it's not tested, it's not valued. We have a curriculum from pre-K to 12 for every single subject. We don't, with common language, common expectations, and common goals, but we don't have a curriculum for the social, emotional, and spiritual and behavioral growth of kids. And that could be easily developed. Language that's age appropriate, expectations that are progressive through the years and age appropriate could be developed. The fact of the matter is that, you know, back in the dark ages when I started teaching, deportment, conduct, effort, those were things we graded kids on. And there were parents who viewed those as every bit as important, those grades, as their academic grades. But we almost don't even see that stuff in report cards today. So I believe that if the Commonwealth of Massachusetts spent 1/10 of the money it spent on developing curriculums for language arts and mathematics and science, the areas that are tested, in social, emotional, behavioral, and spiritual growth of students from pre-K through grade 12 with common expectations, common language, common goals, our kids would benefit from it. Because the fact of the matter is that far too many of them are in neighborhoods and families that have been ravaged by the opiate addiction, by poverty, by a number of the issues that you all know face our children. And those things aren't taught in places like they were when I was a kid. And I think, you know, Meka hit the nail right on the head. When you get a staff that has that as a focus and you change those behaviors, academic growth is going to increase.
And folks, just so you know, we are halfway through our question and answer period. So, Mr. Collins, what personal qualities do you have that will help you serve as president of the SEA?
Well, I've got a lot of experience speaking publicly. I care very deeply. I'm very passionate about our teachers, about our students, about quality education, and I've been at it a long time. I've seen some things come and go, and I've learned a lot over the years. And the fact that I am willing to fight with someone in a way that is not destructive, but stands up for what I believe in, and not back down, but also not lose the respect of the people that I'm fighting with. I mean, there's no incognito for me all around the city, and everybody doesn't agree with everything I have to say, but they listen, and we do make progress. I mean, it took me standing up there on a podium in convocation for the last 8 years to finally get this district to start with PBIS, somewhat trying to address the social, emotional, spiritual, and behavioral growth of these kids. And I've been beating the drum on that for a long time. The fact is that when we've got the accountability system that we've got, that shame, blame, and punish, administration is too frightened to take the risk of doing something differently and getting back to educate the whole child. Art, music, shop, home and careers, the kind of things that kids are interested in, that give them a reason to want to learn how to read and to write and to learn their mathematics. You're taking that stuff away. It's just crazy what's going on here. And we need an advocate who's going to be speaking it and beating the drum on that.
Thank you. So, Ms. McGee, what personal qualities do you have that will help you serve as president of the SEA?
Well, I'm patient. I learned to be patient when it comes to dealing with my own children and with students. And I think that when you're interacting with people, when you have different goals, that is important to listen, but to also be patient and try to understand where they're coming from. And I do believe that, administration has pressures too. Our superintendent, he has pressures too. But I think that we can come to some common ground that will benefit, with the ultimate goal is to benefit the students in Springfield. And I'm in the trenches, and I don't think that Tim's not in the trenches. I think that the union leadership is a different trench, but you're definitely in there. But I'm in the classroom every day. I'm directly impacted by the policy decisions that are made. It impacts how I teach every day. It impacts my students every day. When, I just took some 10th graders through our ELA MCAS, and they were just so frustrated, and all I could do is kind of like, well, tell them to write about it, but we got to keep going so we can get you to the point where you'll be successful. But I think that's important. One of the reasons why I suggested one of the amendments is so that when you're in the leadership, that you have your time in leadership, and then you also can go back in the classroom. I do want to go back in the classroom. I have experience outside of Springfield. Yes, I know how Springfield schools work, but I also know how schools work in other states because I've taught there, so I have some type of comparison. I go to conferences and things like that are outside of Massachusetts because I kind of want to know what's going on in other places. A few weeks ago, I was on a webinar with teachers in Finland and Canada and all throughout the country, just discussing education issues. And I have a business background. My undergrad is in business, and I've run my own business before, so I think I could bring my business skills to the SEA union leadership.
I almost had to get the hook.
Sorry, I lost track.
That's okay. I'm compulsively counting the cars to make sure I don't mess up. All right, Ms. McGee, what do you think are the top priorities for our union to focus on?
I think our top priorities are putting more instruction, getting more instruction time. I think that we can see from this room that there's an issue with participation. I mean, this is a candidates forum about who's going to be in leadership, and this is what we have. So I think that's very important that we focus on participation, because that's part of the democratic process, is that people participate in what's going on. I think that's going to be critical. I think that's going to be critical. I think that in order for us not to be a Holyoke, that we need to focus on how do we get people here, how do we get people involved, how do we get people involved not just on the local level, but on the state level and also on the national level. And it's kind of hard because teachers are under fire, you know, and I teach, I don't just teach, I had to find somebody to cover for my night school tonight. I teach night school, I teach Saturday school, I teach boot camp. You know, other teachers, they're tutoring after school every day, they're running chess club. You know, I had a club meeting the day before I came here. And so we do have a lot going on, but we got to find a way that we can get teachers to participate, that we can get them connected, not just to teachers in Springfield, but teachers all over Massachusetts, teachers on a national level, teachers on an international level. There's actually a group that's working on kind of like that professional learning community, not just in the United States, but teachers all over the world. So now, wouldn't that be great to have ideas from teachers all over the world to be able to bring back to Springfield and make Springfield better? So I think that is one of the biggest issues, is participation. And I think that if we got that, a lot of these other issues, we'd be able to deal with.
So, Mr. Collins, what do you think are the top priorities for our union to focus on?
Well, I'd say the working conditions, which are the kids' learning conditions. But from a philosophical point of view, with the way teachers have been treated over the last couple of decades, we need to bring hope to people. Make them aware of the fact they should be proud of what they do. They have one of the most difficult jobs of any teacher in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But I think they've lost some hope that raising their voice in their community, be it in their church organization or whatever social group they're a part of, they don't want to speak up. They don't want to talk about what's wrong with the way, you know, because education reform has been written over the last number of years by educational bureaucrats and politicians who are so far removed from the work that we do that they don't really understand it. And I have been around for 43 years, and I've seen education reform come and go. And it's never accomplished what everybody wants it to. Every child succeeding. And the fact of the matter is it won't until the voices of the people doing the work are at the table where the decisions are being made. And the SEA membership has given me the opportunity to be at that table, and sometimes, quite frankly, I feel like a voice in the wilderness. But it's a voice that's there, and it's a voice that's growing louder across this country. More and more people are beginning to understand that the corporate running of public schools is harmful to children, and it's time for us to make a change.